welcome on board Viren Shetty, ED and Group COO at Narayana Healthcare, joining in on the show right now. Viren, hi. Thanks for joining in. Firstly, help us understand this CAPEX announcement that you've made of the Cayman Islands. What kind of a CAPEX is this and for how many years is it going to get exhausted? What are your plans?
Sure. This is an expansion of our hospital in the Cayman Islands. The existing structure we have is located on the east end of the island. This is a new facility that will be coming up much closer to the city. It is two parts. One is an oncology-focused cancer center, and the other one is a daycare and ambulatory care center. This will include a very large ER department, cardiac emergency, neonatal ICU, robotic surgery, the full range of diagnostic equipment, and outpatient services. Its construction will start in the next month. It should take 18 months for the oncology to come up and 24 months for the rest of the building to be operational. And the total cost, we've estimated to be around $100 million, give or take.
Sure. What is the current occupancy at your Cayman Islands facility? And do you sense a huge opportunity when it comes to medical tourism in the Cayman Islands from, say, the US and nearby areas?
Yeah, there is a huge opportunity for medical tourism for the Cayman, and not just for the Caribbean region, but the United States, Canada, and the other Latin American nations. But these things do take a lot of time because the air links are yet to be established right now because of the COVID-related disruptions. And so in the meantime, we pursue this as an opportunity to look at more daycare-focused primary and secondary healthcare that we historically stayed away from. And that is something that is more domestically targeted. The occupancy of our existing hospital in East End is around 40-odd%, but that is occupancy for patients who are staying overnight. That's not really a consideration for outpatients, for diagnostics, for daycare procedures, because they don't really count towards occupancy. And for them, convenience is the most important factor. And so from a convenience perspective, we have to build a separate facility much closer to where people live.
How big is the opportunity, according to you, when we're looking at the US and the wider Caribbean region? What's the kind of potential, the kind of expectations on growth that you have from the region?
We have pretty aggressive expectations of growth. This is one of our best performing units, and we see a very strong pipeline of growth, not just in the Cayman Islands, but in other islands as well. We recently took over contract to manage a government hospital in the island of St. Lucia. We're simultaneously pursuing contracts in Bermuda and the Bahamas and sending our doctors to go around and do treatment. See, there are 40 million people that live in the Caribbean who historically always have to depend on going to the United States or to Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama for treatment. But this self-sufficiency that the whole world needs to start getting into, because pandemics like this are going to be quite a regular occurrence, and we can't always assume that for life-threatening diseases, the borders will always be open for patients. And so our effort, being a very low-cost, high-quality provider in the Caribbean, is to make these islands self-sufficient in the healthcare services by partnering with institutions like us so we can use similar resources and spread them out across multiple locations. That both reduces costs and provides them services that they otherwise would not have access to.
Okay, fair enough. And in terms of funding as well, how are you planning that? And also, when do you see, for instance, the CAPEX leading to revenue recognition as well down the line? Are you looking at FY24, 25?
Sure. The funding is split, I would say, 60-40, 40% through internal accruals, 60% through local borrowing. We have quite a lot of leverage available to us, and we will use that. As far as revenue accrual, as soon as the cancer block is commissioned, we can start generating revenues almost immediately. So I would say closer to FY23, FY24.
Hi, morning. Nikunj Dalmia also joining in. When I speak to some common friends who also are your investors, they tell me the reason why we like NH, Narayana Hrudayalaya, is because it's an asset-light company. Isn't this a big departure from what you projected always, that you are going to be an asset-light business? Suddenly you're committing to $100 million CAPEX?
But we can't be too slavishly dedicated to one business model. Of course, as far as possible, the preference is for asset-light. But in a low interest rate environment like the Cayman, and given the high cost of land and infrastructure, we could have opted for an asset-light model and partnering with the developer who would have built the asset and given to us. But their rental expectations were far in excess of the interest rates that we were able to gain there. So just from a cash flow perspective, it made much more sense for us to build and own the asset ourselves. The other is that hospitals are extremely long-dated assets. And so paying rent over 50, 60-year period would have been a tremendous burden on the infrastructure that we set up. But having said that, we are asset light in the sense that the other infrastructure we're building across the island and in other places are in a partnership mode or an asset light mode. For example, we run a lot of clinics in the Cayman Island. Those are rented assets. The hospital we're managing in St. Lucia, we're not owning the asset, we're managing it on their behalf. Similarly, the partnerships we're pursuing in Bermuda, Bahamas, Jamaica is where our doctors will go there, operate, and come back. So we don't really have ownership of the asset. So it's always, we'd have to look at what makes most sense over the long period. And there are some instances where investing makes sense. There are some instances where an asset-light approach makes sense. And we use that approach judiciously, but always being very conservative about the amount that we borrow and the amount that we spend on investments like this.
So next 2 to 3 years, how much of your total proposed profit, I'm not looking at revenue because revenue is a function of a lot of other factors, how you look at booking your revenue. How much of your total profit could come from Cayman? That's part one. And part two, tell us about the regulation in Cayman, because if there are challenges with price caps, if there are challenges on how much can you charge per operation or healthcare, then that in a sense could be a huge challenge for your business.
So on the the second question, what you asked, what are the price caps and the regulation came in? See, these are 100% insured markets. Everyone has an insurance either provided to them either by the government or by their employers. And so those are very long dated contracts that are 4 to 5 years. And given our very strong dominant position, we tend to have quite good contracts with these payers. But in the end, we also understand that it's not about increasing prices. For us, about increasing the overall market. So there's no such question of a price cap in that situation. That is something that's quite unique to India. It's more a question of your ability to negotiate and grow the overall market. And so we don't believe that that would be too much of an issue. The other is the other kinds of regulation. The most key one was our ability to bring doctors from India to the Cayman Islands. And that is the only country in the Caribbean that has allowed us that freedom and flexibility. The other countries have not allowed it. But with the success of this model, we hope to persuade other countries to allow Indian doctors to come in without going through their local licensing exams. And so by doing that, that will open up much more islands to us. And that we see as the only true risk to our growth in the Caribbean area.
Okay, let's talk about the vaccine drive here in India, post that as well. Do you expect things to open up materially? Viren, while you have you, I'd like to get your view on that as well and how you see things shaping up post the second phase.
It has started out slow. Maybe slow and steady is the best. It is not my personal preference. I come from a school that prefers to move fast and break things. But of course, you can't apply that really to the healthcare sector. There is definitely some merit in doing things in a more measured and steady manner. But the fact is we are racing against a very fast-moving virus. And so we keep worrying about another wave of the vaccine, or another wave of infections. And the more people we vaccinate, the immediately are able to slow it down. As we've seen in countries like South Korea, Israel, and China even, just going in a full force, it does tend to stop the vaccine, the infection and spread. So I would say it should open up. The best thing the government has done is to allow private sector hospitals to start giving vaccines, and they've opened it up to 60-year-olds and 45-year-olds with comorbidities. I just imagine it is a matter of time before a couple of things happen. One, they allow us to procure vaccines directly from the companies rather than getting it from the government. Two, they allow us to vaccinate people outside of hospitals as well. We get industry leaders coming to us who are very senior in getting their vaccinations done now. And all of them have indicated that they would very happily pay for the vaccine for all their employees because they just want everyone to come back to work. And so this is something that will not cost the government anything. The large companies will partner with institutions like ours, and we would vaccinate huge swaths of the country, factory workers, office workers. And so it just requires a bit of time, I guess, till people get more comfort around it. Because the longer it takes, my guess is people start to get more hesitant about taking the vaccine. So there is time, but not a lot.
Hypothetically, if my company HR reaches you, would be open to this kind of a tie-up?
Absolutely. I mean, even before we've had the permission, we have been proactively reaching out to companies of all shapes and sizes and indicating their interest. And we're even speaking to the manufacturers and indicating that we will buy millions of doses from you, because we know that this is a necessity for the country and the government cannot do everything by itself. It has to partner with the resources that are available. And so we just want to get everything lined up so that should things open up tomorrow, we'll be much more prepared with a nationwide vaccine rollout.
All right, really appreciate your time. Good luck with the vaccination program and good luck with your new expansion in Cayman. And I certainly hope to see much more of you going forward on the channel.
Thank you.